Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McElmore.
All right. Welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have a very special guest, and her name is Tori Rose, the Connector, motivational speaker, trainer, and the founder and CEO of THEOO, LLC, Together Helping Each Other Overcome. Welcome, Tori.
Hi, Kim. Thank you, and just thanks for having me, and welcome to everyone.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm glad that we finally got the opportunity to speak in a different format. So it's been a while since we've seen each other, and I'm just so excited to hear about Tori Rose, the Connector, and also the personal side of Tori Rose. So, if you could just take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself to my listeners, please.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think you did a wonderful job. I am Tori Rose. I do go by the Connector, which was something that started here in Baltimore as a joke. Initially, my friends would joke and say, if you need anything, if you need a moose, Tori can, connect you to the person to get you a moose. Now, I don't know why someone would need a moose, but, the joke was I knew so many people and that I knew how to connect my friends to the resources and to the just the people that could get whatever it was that they needed. Mm-hmm. Never did I think that it would turn into a real kind of mantra for me. Mm-hmm. However, I am just so blessed to have an opportunity to connect people, not only small business owners and entrepreneurs, but inner city youth and single parents and the homeless to resources. So that's where the connecting comes from. I'm in my early 30s, even though I still, do this math about being 27 plus 7. That's my little corny joke. But I'm in my early 30s, and I've seen so much just from being in Maryland, being in Baltimore. I've seen so much poverty and just so many people who have been displaced and they're underemployed, and mm-hmm. people are living and operating below their levels of literacy and things like that. So I just have picked up a cross. I've picked up a beam, and I'm walking and, doing my very best to help others mm-hmm. achieve the best them. So that's pretty much who I am. As you said, I am the founder of THEOO, LLC. THEOO is a for-profit company that we've just made this big decision to go ahead and get a nonprofit side of THEOO as well, so we can offer adult literacy programs at no cost, so that we can help adult learners and even children who are ages 15 and above who maybe have, not always made the right decisions and maybe mm-hmm. made some mistakes, who now need to get their GEDs. They'll be able to come to THEOO and get their GEDs and adult proficiencies, their certifications. Mm-hmm. Whereas on the other side of the house, we train companies, we train individuals. Like I said, we also do nonprofit management and all of these different things. So I'm just excited. That's a kind of synopsis of who I am, but I'm excited that you had me on today. And you're right, it's been like months we haven't been able to see each other.
I know.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. So before we kind of jump more into the business side of you, I want you to talk to mm-hmm. me a little bit about who you are and where you came from, and what also inspired you, besides the fact that hey, this became a joke, and then the next thing you know, you've got this amazing joke that turns into this amazing business. So just tell us, listeners, a little bit about personally who you are, where you're originally from, do you have any children, just want to hear the personal side of it, because I think a lot of times people can truly connect with the person knowing who they are and then where they actually come from. Because as I always explain to people, when they see us, all they see is the shell, and they don't really understand our real story of how we got to where we're at today.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So born and raised primarily in the inner city of Baltimore City. I used to be very embarrassed to tell people that, I was born to young parents. So my parents were late 18, 19 when they had me. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but I know at 18 and 19, if someone had given me a baby, I would have been horrified. Like, what am I supposed to do with this little person? I was still trying to figure life out for myself.
Right.
So
Right.
much like my parents, they just were not ready. My mom had a mother and father who said, we love you enough to take on, your child and love your child as if she were ours. So my grandparents stepped in and they were just amazing people. But early part in my life, my grandmother got sick and she passed away when I was about 8 years old. And at that time, I was thrust into a very ugly custody battle between my mother and father, and which resulted in me being taken out of the state and taken away from my maternal side of the family. And for a few years, I lived with my father, who was physically abusive. Wow. So to go from being in a home where I was safe and I was, affirmed, and I had a regular life in the 80s and 90s growing up, running around the streets of Baltimore with no shoes on, and the things that we would do, turning on the fire hydrants in the summer and frozen cups, because there was a lady on the block who sold frozen cups for $0.25, to being taken into an environment where I didn't have anyone to talk to. So the first time I actually experienced a level of, anguish or strife was between 8 and 10. So, now I'm dealing with depression and anxiety as a child. And people don't think those things exist in children. They don't think that a child can feel suicidal at 8 and 10. Now, we're seeing it more today than we were seeing it in the 90s. In the 90s, we weren't talking mental health. We weren't saying, let's get this child some reinforcement. It was always, well, the kid must be a behavioral issue and those types of things. And because my father he's very articulate, even still today, he's still alive. He's very articulate. He had a good career, a good job. No one assumed that anything was wrong. Right. So for a few years, I was just, I was abused. I was physically abused by him. When I was 12 years old, CPS came in and they put an end to the physical abuse. But I'm 34 years old and I'm still very much dealing with overcoming some of those, those scars, and just having to relive it at times, which has birthed in me a desire to advocate for other people. So other children, other, young women, single moms, just people in general. Because you never know who may need you to stand in the gap and be their voice. Shortly after that, 12, the CPS comes in. They move me back to Baltimore to, primarily around the city. And I'm moving and shaking and trying to just get reestablished as a young person. But there's hard things to overcome sometimes when you don't have the right support. Right. And again, we're talking about a time when mental health and mental illness and we weren't doing it in minority communities. So by 16, I found myself homeless. So I was homeless from 16 to about 17, almost 18, when I went to Western High School, and a friend, her mother and her sister and her grandparents, they took me in. And because of them, because of their love and their patience with me and their commitment to helping me overcome, it was, Tori, we want to see you overcome. We want to see you get better. We know that there is such a beautiful person on the inside, that you've been hurt and that you're guarded. And if we can just love you, we believe you'll be okay. Right. And through that love, through those prayers, through, the reconditioning, I was able to successfully graduate high school, go on to college. I am a mom. I have a wonderful 9-year-old son who he had of entrepreneurship himself. He just launched and started his own quick pick photography business at 9 years old. So, goodness. And Kim, it's just amazing because I said to him, "Are you sure?" And he's been asking to start his own business since he was about 7 years old. Wow. And I kept saying no, because we're in the age of, the Kardashians and some of these other social media figures where people would look at me and think, oh, I'm trying to be a momager. I was very concerned about what people would think, oh, she's pushing her son or she's forcing this child, but I'm not. So, recently a number of opportunities have presented themselves to him and I can't deny it anymore. I'm like, all right, let's put an LLC behind this thing,
Exactly. Exactly. Well, you're never too young to learn. You're never too young to do your own thing. And I think that a lot of times we as adults, and then, and I'm not even going to say just even with our own Black communities, we're so used to just saying, get your education and go get a job. No, get your education and use that education for the benefit of you. So he's old enough to understand that, and he knows what he wants. And, I love the fact that you decided to push yourself aside and say, you know what, we're going to go for this, because he deserves that.
He does. And he is definitely, he's even showing me the importance of certain foundational things. So when I sit with clients, I have a number of clients right now who we are working on their business structure and business development, because that's also now a service that THEOO provides. I also am co-owner of Beehive Connected Group, which I think is probably how you and I met, under the Beehive Connected Group, which is co-owned by myself and my cousin, Kiana B. Jones. So Beehive Connected Group focuses on the marketing and the PR portions of helping clients, successfully sustain their businesses. So in working with my son, there's so many foundational things like, business cards, why you choose certain colors, how you market yourself from the conception of the idea. So much of this stuff we just say because this is what we do. We talk very matter of factly, like, oh, this is what you do. But working with a 9-year-old, it has given me even the ability to speak more in layman's terms, so that when I'm working with my clients, I can say, well, you have orange here, you have blue there, you have green there, but you're selling palm trees. Like, what are we doing? What
is it conveying?
You understand? What is it conveying? And then where's the consistency? What does, when your clients see you, will they know this is palm trees, or are they going to think it's snowballs? It's one of those life lessons that we learn in the most particular and peculiar ways. So I am definitely just learning like some foundational things, like, oh, I forgot, even me, I can go back to the basics.
Right. So, but it's funny, because every business, I think a lot of times when we sit back and think about, well, do we want to revamp ourselves, or do we want to do this? You always have to go back and look at, how did you begin? What were the basics? What got you to where you're going to? And is it really necessary for you to move on and change things?
That's right.
It's one thing to tweak it, but changing it is really a whole different dynamic. And, I'm even learning that in the process, because as you grow, you definitely want to make sure that you're aligned to who you are today versus where you were yesterday. So I think it's an amazing opportunity that here you're getting an opportunity to regrow your thought process of what it takes to be in business, because your son is essentially saying, this is who I am, so now you got to help me get to this point. So I think it's really cool, because you guys have a beautiful relationship anyway, having the opportunity to meet him, the one time. So, so I'm really happy to see. Look, we need to get him out here and take some pics now. And then his whole idea, his concept is really awesome. He'll be doing like community events, fun fest. He has a carnival on the 3rd. And the whole idea is just really, you take your pictures, you get them, digitally right there. It's a quick pick. But also, if you have a family photo shoot, most times we do photo shoots, and it requires a level of editing and that type of thing. You may have to wait 10 days to 2 weeks. Joshua's process is it gets it to you immediately. So you take the pictures today, you get the pictures today. Okay.
So I'm excited, to really just help him watch and walk through this process. And I was more so amazed that there weren't so many others in this area, who have the concept. So, it's just amazing. And you're right. If it's not broke, why fix it? I think sometimes we don't realize that we don't have to completely uproot something. You can put a little seasoning on it and make it new, but you don't have to completely uproot it. You just, tweak it a little, like you said.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get him out here to the Northern Virginia area, because I know he can't drive yet. So, Mom, you're going to be rolling up and down that highway.
Right. I am officially his Uber, so that's a good thing as well.
Well, that part is even cuter. They hear he's got his great business, but I can't drive yet, so I definitely need my own Uber. So that's pretty neat. So maybe that might be another new concept to come up with. So,
Right.
okay. So back to you. So
Don't give
I
me
kind of,
ideas, Kim. I've been started
hey, I'm
another business,
telling you,
okay?
yeah, the brain is working right now. I'm like, maybe we need to
Right.
do this.
Right. You're exactly right.
But hey, but that's how great concepts and great things come to fruition is just thinking sometimes, how things
Oh,
can
yeah.
connect. And that's what you're good at. That's why we call you the connector, right?
Thank you. It's really kind of weird. Normally when I meet people, I probably look like Rain Man because as they're talking, my eyes are like getting big and little, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
moving my head to the right and the left. But what I'm doing is I'm searching my memory, and I'm listening to you, and I'm looking at you, and I'm trying to figure out who I can connect you to.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no one. I don't care if I meet you in the grocery store. I mean, I was at a funeral. It's not funny, but I was at a funeral a couple of months ago, and this guy was, he was talking, and I was sitting there thinking about all the opportunities and business I could bring his way. So
Right.
it's almost like, I can't turn it off. And I'm grateful I feel like it's a divine gift that I can
Absolutely.
instantly go, this person will be good with that person. So I think it's a good name. It's really cute. I like it. And it's funny when I'm out and people say, hey, that's Tori Rose, the connector.
Exactly. Yeah,
It's
but it
so
definitely
funny
fits
to me.
it fits your personality perfectly. That name does.
Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. So I just kind of want to touch bases a little bit on what you talked about earlier with growing up, and just touch base a little bit on the mental illness piece. The one
Hmm.
thing that we do see consistently, even till this day, even though mental illness is being discussed more, still in our own Black communities, that was like the thing that you just don't touch. You just don't talk
That's
about.
right.
You would
That's right.
always hear in the background, and I can even remember hearing this as a kid, oh, they're just crazy. Well, what did
Yeah.
crazy mean? What does
Right.
that mean to the average individual? It's usually
Right.
the negative. It's not really the understanding that, mental illness happens to everyone. It's not
Yeah.
based on color.
That's right.
But unfortunately, we in our society always label everything and everybody. So,
Yes.
it's one thing that I've seen that's constantly being stepped over even till this day. Even when I think about all the incarceration that we have, some of these men and women who are being incarcerated, why are they being incarcerated? Is it because
Hmm.
they have a mental illness capacity that nobody even knew about? And,
Yeah.
I can even think about in my own personal situation, being in a domestic abuse violence situation with with my ex and boyfriend that I had, that the thought process that going through court, I had to find out then that he was mentally had some issues, but nobody ever knew it.
Wow.
He never was on
Wow.
medication. But, how do you go from one minute where you're perfectly fine, the next minute you're literally going off the deep end and you don't even understand why? There's obviously
Right.
some misconnections there, but it was never diagnosed until after, he had to go into prison. So, when you're talking about these conversations and we're talking about people, like I said, even as young adults, nobody assumes that there's anything wrong with us. And you
That's
can't
right.
assume that. And I think that constant communication is key to everything, because
Yes.
in even like we're talking with our kids, and like you're talking about how you're very connected with your son, you have to stay connected with your kids, because you
Yes.
never know what they're going through. And here you didn't have that opportunity, but like you said, I love the fact that there was at least people there to reach out to and say, look, we love you enough that we want to see you become successful and help you through everything that you're going through, and here you are today talking
Yes.
about these things and helping other people. But talk to me, though, a little bit more about some of the challenges that you've been facing. I mean, you have kind of a multifaceted business.
Yes.
What challenges do you face, trying to, as you're just starting to grow in a in a nonprofit way, and you've been doing it for profit. So talk about some of those things.
So I'm going to go back maybe 30 seconds because
No,
what you
that's
said
fine.
is so vital. So I read a lot, and I always tell people you have to read. You
Mm-hmm.
have to read. You have to read. There is so much power in just knowing and exploring new concepts and thinking outside of the box. So a lot of what I'm reading, I'm reading a number of psychology books, but I'm also reading about slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And I come from a very diverse family. My mother's biracial. Her family is multicultural. So I come from every shade and hue. When we
Mm-hmm.
come together for family reunions, we have, from the lightest lights to the darkest darks, and everyone is accepted. We didn't really have a household where we sat down and we talked about racism or segregation, because we were all encompassing. Like, we really just love everyone.
Right.
And I'm sure if you go down our Rolodex, you're going to find every nationality, every ethnicity. So growing up and going to a HBCU, I just didn't really understand why so many people were angry. Didn't understand why people were angry. So here I am today, just going back and reading a lot about race relations. And I got a degree in political science. And I've always just wanted to understand more of history. History and psychology go hand in hand.
Hand in hand, yes.
So when we're talking about not identifying mental illness in minority people, blacks, browns, light browns, dark blacks, us, the brown and black people.
Right.
It stems, hundreds of years. We go back and we see that if there was a child born on a plantation that had a slight, difference or distinction from another child, that child may have been killed, that child may have been discarded. So even in our DNA, it is in our DNA to ignore or to pretend that everything is okay for the fear of being discarded.
That's right.
So I have seen, and I know even in my own world, my own walk, I have seen my brain, this is figurative, I've seen my brain try to deal with things and try not to fold over itself. For a fear of being, looked at in a different way, discarded, disregarded, because Lord forbid if I say something and I sound a little weird, they're going to think I'm crazy and then I'm going to be alienated. Some of these things are so deep rooted in us because we don't want to be labeled and we don't want to be called, weak or have any kind of deficiencies. So I just wanted to point that out, that I know that's one of the challenges that I have personally. And that's one of the things I see even professionally. So a part of the reason that we're going into the nonprofit realm is because we understand the help that is needed in certain communities. Right. And that the nonprofit realm is going to have a greater reach versus the for-profit. Right. I would never want someone to need my help or to need my training or to need my coaching, because I'm also a life coach. And because they can't afford it, then they don't have access to me.
Right.
Because there are people out here who really don't even understand that they may need to be, changing their diets. They may need to get some type of additional support through medication. Like I hear people all the time say, I'm not taking pills. I'm not taking pills. But you'll take a pill if you have a stomach ache. If you stub your toe and you have an ache, you'll take a Tylenol. How is it that we're okay with pharmaceuticals when it's, those things, but something that's going to chemically stabilize us, we won't do it. Now, I'm not making an endorsement for Big Pharma. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But there are times, there are times when we have to say, what's healthy? What is going to help me? I know a few years ago, I had a number of losses. I lost my aunt on a Wednesday, my grandmother 2 days later. On that Friday, my best friend was killed 4 weeks later. Wow. And then a coworker who was like a sister died in her sleep a month after him. So we're talking 4 major losses back to back. My mind was doing what it knows to do, which is fight or flight. And that's a natural response. Most of us don't understand that adrenaline, serotonin, and certain things that happen in the brain happen so we don't implode.
Right. So
I was walking around a shell for 3.5 months. 3.5 months. Had no idea, didn't know how anything was happening. I don't know how my son was getting to school, how my bills were getting paid. I was on autopilot. And one day I came to, and the season had changed. And I'm in my closet and I'm looking for a jacket. I'm like, where is my jacket? I had taken my clothes to the cleaners months before and never gone back to get them.
Wow.
When I went to the cleaners, the lady said, we called you 11 times. She said, we have left you messages and someone here has even talked to you. Kim, I couldn't remember any of it. Could not remember any of it because my brain was not healthy. Right. So what THEOO is a platform for people to get healthy, be it for their businesses, their personal lives, and especially in the areas of education and getting access to resources. So I just got passionate about that. I'm sorry, I'm reading a lot and I'm feeling
that's fine. I'm just sitting here listening to what you just said, that how it's amazing how, like you said, we can be on autopilot when something devastating goes on, and that's I think happens to most people when you have something tragic go on in your world and you're trying to just fit back in because you don't really want to take the time to think about it because it's so much. And then, like you said, you still have the other part of your life that you have to deal with. You have a child to take care of, and you're just going and going, and it's just so profound that we do this and don't realize what we're doing until, like you said, one day it wakes you up. And to hear your story, to tell that story, I'm thinking, oh my gosh. I know you were probably standing like, what are you talking about? And why would you say that you called 11 times? That's just not me.
No. I'm
like,
all
what?
together.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
we put these masks on. I'm all together. What do you mean? You know, and I was still going out, still going to functions and all of these things. And no one knew that I was barely holding on by a thread. I mean, just barely holding on. So to tie it back into what your question was, some of the challenges that I know I'm currently facing in my business as we grow and we are touching a number of areas and a number of clients, and it's stretching beyond now the DMV, is I still have a desire to give people that one-on-one interaction, that one-on-one support. And anyone that I train to work, you know, for any of my companies or to be a you know, support or an alignment with the nonprofit, they have to have my heart. They have to have Kiana's heart. Because we cannot make connections that are not going to be fruitful for the people that we have been put in place to serve. Above everything, we are, and I think I'm going to change my anthem, my slogan on my website and my whole business structure, and to really focus more on servitude. Because the whole concept of THEOO is serving others. So be it, you know, serving through providing adequate training or affordable training platforms. I know the first time I started a business was a few years ago, and it was called Tori Time. And it was a consulting business, you know, consulting in nature, and it failed within 6 months. And I tell people all the time, you know, I could go back now and, you know, revitalize Tori Time because I know what I did wrong. First of all, I started a business with no mentor, no coaching. I didn't know who my clients were. I didn't know what my audience was. I just knew if you needed something done, I could do it. The whole concept was for you to use my time. And pay me to use my time. But I didn't have a business structure, a business plan. I didn't even, nothing, right? Wow. But I also could not afford training. So there was I had some skill gaps and some deficiencies that if there was somewhere for entrepreneurs to go and be trained, that wasn't going to cost me $1,000 out of pocket as a single mother, you know, wasn't going to cost me $1,500 to $2,000. I remember going to a Dale Carnegie class, and I love those types of platforms, but I had to save parts of my tax refund, and, you know, I was like making dinners and selling banana pudding just to afford this 3-day course.
Wow.
And now I wholeheartedly believe in self-development, and I believe over, you know, a range of 20 years, you should spend over $100,000 developing yourself. That's conferences, books, you know, all of that. I believe that. But when you're beginning and you are trying to keep your overhead low, and you're really just trying to figure out, can I even do this thing called entrepreneurship?
Right.
You need help. You need a THEOO. So that's where THEOO comes from. And, you know, we have clients right now who have had businesses for 4 or 5 years, but since they've been in the training programs with us in the last 4 months, they've done more sustained business in 4 months than they have in 4 years. And that's what it's about.
Exactly. Yeah, but like you said, you're providing the tools and resources that sometimes, you know, people just won't take the time to review, to learn for themselves, and some people don't have the time. But you know, when you can find that right connection, the right person to help you and guide you to get to that point, it does make it so much more easier, and it helps you become much more successful. And I think that's, you know, for anybody, you know, definitely having a mentor and so forth, that absolutely helps you elevate yourself, because you don't know it all. We know specific things within our expertise of the business, but there's a whole lot that people don't understand about running a business. It's more than just having that one little piece that's going to make you successful. So
that's right.
Yeah. So your business is phenomenal, and the more I learn about you, and the more I listen and watch, I'm just like, wow, this young lady has got it going on, and I'm very proud. I mean, I feel like a proud mother right here. So,
well, I appreciate you. I mean, every time I talk to you, you are definitely leveling me up. And, I talk a lot about that. I get to still use words like level up and lit because I'm a millennial. Like I'm, still holding on to those. So, but you level me up, and you teach me a lot about like the IT things and software and apps. And I'm like, whoa. So that's really what it's about as well. Having people in your network who can say, oh, hey, have you tried this? Or what about that? Or I see that you're taking 6 steps to get this done. If you do this, you'll be more efficient. Exactly. And we all know that, time is money when it's your own business,
That's right.
So, yeah, I appreciate you. Well, and I'm so grateful for our connection. I like healthy connections. You'll hear me say that all the time. I like healthy connections where we can have mutually beneficial interactions. Right. It's not just one-sided where someone's just taking or you're just taking, but we're helping each other get to the next best step so that we can become the next best version of ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Most certainly.
All right. Well, then on that note, if you had one piece of advice to give to anyone who decides that they want to open a business, what would that be? I
would say divorce fear. Ooh, just divorce it now. Just get to a place where you say, you know what? I can do this. And if I have to tell myself all day, every day that I can do it until I start to believe it, then that's what I'm going to do. Fear is like a poison, and it will not only trick your mind, it'll trick your heart about who you are. It will poison your relationships. It'll poison the opportunity to grow, to make, healthy connections, to even be in the right place at the right time. I am frequently in the right place at the right time because I have no fear. I believe fear is not real. It does not exist. And honestly, if I go back, like let's say if I'm fearful of something, I normally can go back and pinpoint who gave me the fear. Wow. Like, where did that come from? Who delivered that into my aura? Who gave that to my atmosphere? And why did I accept it? And I normally send it back. I'm like, wait, that's not me. That's not real. And I send it back because what I understand is the earth is in itself abundant. So that means that we're supposed to have our dreams and have them abundantly. We're supposed to be able to walk successfully in our business. And hear my heart when I say successful doesn't always mean rich. It doesn't always mean, abundance in money. But just, the happiness of doing something that you love to do. That's how I measure success. So my one, point of advice or piece of advice, and it's just something that I live and I lead by, is fear is not real. So divorce it. Divorce it, kick it to the curb, give it a Dear John letter. Don't answer its tweets, its texts, put it on Do Not Disturb. And get to a point where you understand that fear is just not real. It doesn't exist. Right. And if we all adopted that mindset and really being fearless, many of us would change the trajectory of our children's lives. I think about my grandparents, and they loved me, but they were very old school about a lot of things, and they just operated in fear. So growing up, I was very apprehensive. But if they had a no fear mindset, I would have been free as a child. That's what I'm seeing in my son. My son has a freedom at 9 that most adults don't have because I don't walk in a sense of fear. Right. So he's just mimicking the culture that I've already set for him.
And like I said, that's amazing. And like I said, yes, I love that you stepped aside and said, you know what, I'm going to let him do this and give him the guidance that he needs. So yeah, that's amazing. And that's an excellent piece of advice. So
thank you.
You're welcome. So tell the listeners how they can get a hold of you so they can get some of this great advice.
Awesome. So everywhere I am Tori Rose. That's T as in Tom, O-R-I. Second word is R-O-S-E, like the flower. That means Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I know eventually I need to come to Snapchat, so I'll be there shortly. And LinkedIn, everywhere is consistently Tori Rose or Tori Rose the Connector. So both of those are me. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, you'll find me there. Also, THEOO has a website. It's www.t as in Tom, HEOO LLC.com. You can also email us at V as in Victory, ROSE. So vrose.theo, again, it's 2 O's, THEOO @gmail.com. So vrose.theo @gmail.com is my email. Find me Tori Rose or Tori Rose the Connector on all of the social media platforms. We're really, really big on the social media branding, so everything is consistent. Also follow us, Beehive Connected Group, because again, Beehive Connected Group is the joint management and consulting company that Kiana and I are, we own. So when you see us in the community doing like those, like the fundraisers, or we're working with people's campaigns and things like that, or even some of the community events where we're like raising money for schools and just different things, that's under Beehive Connected Group.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Wow. We have finally come to an end, and I do want to thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Do you have any last words? Hello? I think I lost you there for a second. All right. Well, I actually think I lost my guest. I think we got disconnected, but I do want to say thank you, and I hope that everything is good on her end. And for everyone else, though, you all have an awesome rest of the evening. And remember, we are our iHeartRadio show now every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.